Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast, back to Game and Compute podcast. Here, I'm talking still about this show. So let's get a little more into the details of this show called How to Get Rich. Now, I described before about, some of my own past history with being poor with money, how, mentally I had things going on that were just not being managed, and I was kind of maybe downplaying it or not really fully aware or just not handling it in a balanced method as I could have and should have. I wasn't really considering all my options of what I could have done. I think simply the easiest thing to do if you have paid days off, just take some days off and handle your stuff. But there's that, and then there's also there might be some spoiler alerts up in here. So basically, in the first episode of How to Get Rich, they start addressing a couple. It's a young couple. I think the woman is 27. I don't know how old the guy is. They have 2 or 3 kids, it looked like. And, later on, this lady speaks to her experiences. She later speaks to her, experiences growing up that, she felt based on her background, her father was pretty absent from her life, and so she saw 2 sides. Was it her? I don't know. There were multiple characters, but I think it was her who was saying, like, one family member was super... No, I don't think it was her, actually. I think it was someone else. But anyways, this couple, started having some financial difficulties. Well, they had been having them. It seemed like the guy was more interested in saving and maybe getting some income on his own and working, and she was making 6 figures already, but keeping him kind of oblivious and in the dark about the bills and the finances and everything. And he was a stay-at-home dad and felt like he didn't have a lot of worth, and she was kind of keeping him completely out of the picture. And they had a joint account, so that was the couple I kind of first was seeing. Well, everybody in this show is having some kind of psychological situation that isn't being addressed. At least if it is being addressed, they're not talking about it in too much detail on the show, at least not yet. I don't know if they will. Again, I'm only on episode 5 at this point. But yeah. So this whole thing that's going on, this couple is definitely in a struggle. She likes to spend, travel, do things like that. He seems into hiking, but other than that, he wants to work. They have this kind of, I don't know what their values are, or their kind of stance is on childcare. It seems like they don't prefer outside childcare. But I don't really know. But it is an option that it seemed like there was some conflict as to why they couldn't do that at least part of the time. But mostly, what I noticed at first was how they spoke to each other. So the way they talk to each other, the way this couple interacts with one another, um, was not too friendly. Um, the guy seems, like a sensitive guy. He's not like throwing his weight around and stuff. Uh, the lady seems very um, like verbally aggressive. Like I wouldn't say that she's like abusive. I wouldn't go that far, but definitely their communication could be better. And I feel like she is the reason why the communication isn't good, because she does take like a very blaming attitude, and then like she also, you know, starts, delving into some of his insecurities. Um, I was watching a little bit of an Anthony O'Neill episode. I think it's like a 2 year old episode, sometime this week, and it was him, his sister, who I think had been married for like a year at that point, and maybe a couple, a married couple, and the four of them were all talking about kind of like cis hetero relationships and finances, and saying how most couples don't talk to one another at all, about finances. And this is a theme I've been hearing, that people don't talk about that. Now I find it interesting that you know sorry, people keep coming in. They park like right next to me with their windows open. Um, I'm not, it's easier for me to just focus on recording, where I don't have to think about who's overhearing me. Um, so basically, this. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so the couples that that were talking, the couple that was talking, and one thing I noticed, I was like, okay, two things that I feel like, not every couple, but two things that I feel like I've noticed people have a little bit of complexity with speaking about. One thing is topics around like sex, sexuality. Another thing is finances. Now, I would say societally, it almost makes more logical sense to me when I see that, a lot of couples mention, I'm not even talking about Anthony O'Neill or whatever, but just like in general, in relationships, when people start saying things like, "Oh, our sex life could be better," and all this kind of stuff, it's kind of like, well, they don't know how to talk about it. But also in society, we're not taught to talk about it, right? There really is a taboo around it a lot of times. And so a lot of times, like, say for example, in the LGBT world, it's kind of interesting to me that, and I'm not bashing guys, I'm not into all that kind of thing, like bashing people, but I'm just saying, like, there is kind of this like maybe stereotype or something that, when someone who's a woman has never been with a woman before, but has only been with men, and then maybe she realizes that she wants to be with women, and they start being sexually involved, you know, it's not uncommon to hear people say like, wow, like, the sex is better. And I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the physical part of it. I think mostly it's the communication part of it. Um, and that's not the same for every person. I mean, there's going to be crappy sexual partners in any kind of sexuality, any kind of gender. Like, but that is something that you hear. It is, I don't know if you'd call it a stereotype, but it is something that you do hear often. That's not something that anybody can really argue too much, because that is like a theme that comes up a lot. Whether or not the theme is accurate or anyone's done the statistical math on it, like, I don't really know, but that is a theme that you hear so often, is that, when a woman has been with men all her life and then starts being with women, she kind of notices different things that were kind of missing in the maybe communication about sexual things, and just like expectations and all these other kinds of things. Because a lot of times, like, most people, I would say, are socialized in like a heteronormative environment, and all that. Like, I'm not going to go into this whole conversation about it, but the reason why I mention that is because it does show that there are other areas in life where people just don't communicate, right? Well, and sometimes it's a gender thing, sometimes it's all these other expectations from society and all these other kinds of things tied into like why people don't talk about it. Like with sexuality, usually it's like males are usually the ones who are considered like the sexual person who is promoting this to kind of move forward, and like, let's both of us hook up kind of thing. And usually, it's the guy who's pursuing and all these kind of like, this isn't accurate. I know that I'm just saying things that this doesn't apply to everybody, but usually you don't hear most women saying like, oh yeah, I went out and asked this guy out, or like, I kept on asking this guy out, or like, and you also don't hear most women, when they're talking about female sexuality and their sexual experiences, and they're like a cishet woman, like hooking up with guys, like, you don't often hear a lot of women being like, always, it's not like a theme that you hear that women are always sexually satisfied by their male partners. That's not a theme. Whereas in the LGBT world, with two women in a couple, you often hear that as a theme, that women have some form of a sexual satisfaction. So that's what I'm talking more about, themes. And I can't verify, I'm just saying this is what you hear in society. I'm not making it up. Like, I listen to podcasts constantly. I watch YouTube a lot. Like, usually that's the kind of content you're going to come across. It's hard to avoid finding anything like that. If you're looking at, women talking about sexuality and things like that, and different types of women, you're going to hear that. And so I say all that to mention, when it comes to finances, it seems to me that people are better at communicating about sexuality and all that kind of stuff than they are about finances, which is weird to me, because finances seem like a little less of a personal situation, I would think. But I feel like it's not uncommon that you hear couples say, oh, we didn't start talking about finances till after we got married. Those who are getting married, like, till after we got married, and that to me is very weird. Because in relationships, even, like, most people, I think, if they notice that they are having like some sexual issue in their marriage, they'll maybe get counseling for it, or get some kind of help for it, or, there are things that people try to do to kind of like improve that, with the communication and just like learning about each other better and all these other kinds of things, instead of just sticking with doing the same thing that's not working, if one person isn't satisfied in what's going on. But I feel like with finances, people don't get it together like that, and they kind of just let it go on and on and on and on and on. Like, I've witnessed it with people I know, with couples I know, family members, friends, where people are just on a different page about stuff, and they don't start talking about it till later on. Now, I'm not married, and, when I do kind of involve myself in like dating, that is one of the first things I kind of think about is how financially stable is this person? Not for my own benefit necessarily, but for example, I've dated someone who, they had kids and all this other kind of stuff, and I was working full time. They were not working, maybe they were working full time. I don't really know, but basically, I had a place where I was staying. I was renting a room. They, at the time, weren't renting a room, and I think they were mostly doing like Uber Eats, kind of like crashing in their car, not crashing the car, but crashing in their car, like sleeping in their car. And they were capable of working, they were able to work, but because they wanted to prioritize some creative drive, and I'm not downplaying it, saying that like that's not important, but because that was their goal to prioritize that. I need some air now. Because that was their goal to prioritize that, they were not working at like a 9 to 5 or something like that, and they didn't want to be tied down. And I get it, I get it. I value that as well, but this person and me, at a certain point, they started talking to me about, if we were gonna move in with one another. And at this point in my life, I wasn't too like, it was an earlier serious dating relationship. It was one of my earlier ones, and I'd never really moved in with somebody that I was dating. And we had a good connection and everything, but they had other issues going on. And I'm not saying I don't have my own issues, because I clearly do, but they had other issues going on. And I'm grateful that in my mind I didn't decide to go through with it. And the reason was because for me it was more so that they had family members that they wanted to have move in too. And so that, to me, it was mostly because of the family members that I was like, nah, like I don't really think moving in is a good idea for me. That's not what I want for myself. If it wasn't for those family members, I wonder if I would have moved in. But I was just kind of like, I don't think I want to go from living with these roommates to like moving in with this person and then their family members. And they had some other drama with some other family, and they were nice, they were calm, but there was some red flags that I luckily dodged. Because I think about it now, and I still think back to that, and things are good, we're friends, but I still think back to that, and I'm like, wow, what if we would have gotten together and moved in together? And like, at that time, I wasn't even like studying finances in any way. I didn't know where I was trying to go with my career. I didn't know what I was trying to do, and they were, kind of artsy hippie type, doing their own artsy hippie type things. And we both kind of have the mentality that we're not too into must have so many possessions, and like must have this wealthy status of like looking like you have like a wealthy status, and like buying all these like name brand things and all that. Like, neither one of us were really into that kind of stuff. We're more into like music and art and all these types of other things. And not saying that we don't like the other things, but yeah, neither one of us were like into like heavily expensive lifestyles. But we both weren't really good with credit, weren't really good with debt, weren't really good with our incomes combined. We could have afforded a decent place, but it would have been a lot for the two of us to deal with that, as well as moving in family and then having to be responsible financially for them. Like, because I think about how I've grown on my own since that point, even like during dating and stuff, but I think about how I've grown since that point of having that potential opportunity to move in with that person. And even though I really cared for them, I'm honestly glad that I never moved in, because that would not have worked too smoothly, because we both weren't you know, like there would be times when I would want to hang out with this person and like they couldn't afford the cover to go into where we were gonna be, you know, stuff like that, where it's like couldn't afford the cover, you know, and so it's like, well, if you can't afford the cover and you're still willing to go out and like you're still trying to like hang out with your friends and you're still trying to do all this stuff, you know, you can't afford it, you know. I was really into hanging out with this person and doing all these things, but like we were like trying to make it work and we had a good vibe, but yeah, on the career end, on the financial end, we just weren't compatible. Um, and I didn't even know it in that many words at that time. I never even thought to look at anything like that, but now I know. But nowadays, when I look at, you know, potential people to date and go out with, um, you know, I do kind of focus on, you know, how they spend, you know, what their money looks like, how they pay people back. And not like in a judgmental way, you know, but just kind of like, do they seem like when we want to go do something, they can afford to go do it? You know, are they down to their last penny on a regular basis and we can't go out to eat? Because I'm not saying like it's all about this spending and hanging out and stuff, but like I look at stuff like that because I'm not going to ask somebody like, what's your credit score? Do you have debt? Like, I'm not going to like straight up ask, but I just kind of look and see like, can they, you know, do we live a similar kind of lifestyle? Does it seem like that we have a similar amount of times that we like to hang out and go out and do stuff, or save or invest, or, you know, think about our money, and like, are we able to talk about where our money goes? You know, like when I talk to somebody, are they like have no clue where their money is and like are don't exercise or don't eat healthy, and like, you know, like what is this other person's lifestyle like? And that is one thing that I noticed in the show. You know, it seems like, you know, the couples hadn't really, like, they've had bad experiences with one another with finances and found maybe like quick fixes to not really have to keep those negative situations going. But it doesn't sound to me like any of them like fully found a point where they could stop, you know, where they could like find a balance where they're actually saving, they're actually able to invest, they're not spending more than they make, they actually have a financial plan where it's like the family's working with each other together, or the couple working with each other together, or even just an individual person, you know, doing their own thing financially. Um, but that's definitely one thing I learned, you know, was watching that. I was like, wow, like this is, you know, it's like just observing, you know, it helped me just to be able to observe, you know, a lot of the time that, you know, some people really aren't good with their money, you know, and for me, I've learned that it's kind of a turnoff for me, you know, you know, especially when people don't want to learn about it, but it's like, I understand everybody, almost everybody, you know, gets into debt. Almost everybody has a financial struggle, and I'm not, you know, I'm not one to hold that against people, especially because I've been there before myself. But, and I can't say I'll never be there in the future, but, you know, I do feel like, you know, sometimes it's a lot, you know, like sometimes it's, you know, it's it's an unnecessary thing to have to deal with, you know, and it's easy to overlook, and it's easy to even see red flags and ignore them. Um, but I think about how stressful things get if I've had my own financial struggles. I can't imagine having my own financial struggles because of the things I deal with and the way that I'm dealing with them or not dealing with them. And then having a partner that, you know, is having their own financial struggles, dealing with things the way they're dealing with them, and trying to have a household together where it's like, one of us or both of us can't fully pay the rent because somebody's overspending or whatever. And like I've seen friends, even kind of bicker a little bit about it, how, it's like, to me they're friends, but they're a couple, and it's like, one person like calling somebody else out on, like, you know spending the other person's money on, you know paying for the whole table, or paying for everybody's drinks, or, sorry, there's some motorcycles, um paying for everybody's drinks, or like partying too hard and like going against the financial plan, and like, just hearing somebody calling somebody else out on it in public, it's like, wow, like, you're gonna do that to your person, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man, like, that's got to be a hard thing, to be with somebody and sharing a space and sharing a house where somebody is, having access to tapping into your finances, and or maybe isn't paying for stuff, you know and just has like different patterns financially. That can be hard to, you know to see. And I always think, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want somebody who isn't gonna keep it together or get it together or know when to kind of evaluate. God. Okay, this is gonna get annoying. These guys are literally riding these things over this speed bump over and over and over again. But yeah, like, I don't think I could deal with something like that. Like, that would be too challenging for me. And I've definitely seen family members too, where one of them is just like buying, spending, always in debt. It's stressful, it's stressful, and it's unnecessary to have that stress, because a lot of it is an issue of impulse control. Like, most of the things that I see people getting in debt to be buying isn't because they're paying for food and paying for that kind of stuff. Like, their money's going somewhere else. Like, most people, when you do the math, if it's only the basics that they're spending on, like, almost every job I've had, when I've done the math, I'm like, I can afford my rent, my food, my transportation for the whole month. If it doesn't count going out, if it doesn't count any kind of debt, if it doesn't count anything else. Now, I'm not talking about people who make like $16 an hour working like 20 hours a week. I'm talking about if you're working full time, and if you're sharing rent. Usually, if you want your own private apartment or something, I could see how that argument doesn't really work, because rent in some areas right now, rent is high. So, like, in my area, even if you make minimum wage, you can't afford to have your own private apartment. You have to share, or you have to have some kind of deal that is a rare deal, but it's not really like a trend that you see people being able to have minimum wage and afford to live independently, or even if they are independent, they're not, sharing rent and that kind of stuff. You don't really see that, So yeah, I could see that argument, like how that is a thing, that is a problematic kind of situation that comes up. But yeah, like, looking at the struggle with the communication, there is that issue that most people aren't taught how to talk about money. You're not even taught what to look at, and everybody knows, okay, if we are combining banks or combining finances, and we have this plan in place, and just knowing that how people are, or if you can trust somebody, if you loan them, or whatever that might look like. I mean, I have somebody that I know that I loaned, I think, like $200 or $300 to, like, 8 years ago or something, And they paid back some of it, but there was a lot that they never paid back. And I'm like, really? Like, you don't have $100 that you can pay me back after 8 years? You haven't figured out how to pay that back? You know, I'm like, I mean, yeah, people forget, but it's like, that's someone who's not handling their finances well, you know. And I felt bad because they had kids, and you know, it wasn't a lot of money, but they mentioned it to me a few years back too. They're like, oh yeah, we need to get together because I still owe you this money. And you know, so I'm like, well, I know that they know because they contacted me and still mentioned it. So I don't really even know what to say, but it's that kind of stuff. You just kind of let it go sometimes. Like, honestly, I let it go. I was like, whatever, you know. Like, me and this person were never enemies. We weren't ever super close, but um you know, I kind of know that, you know, they just weren't handling their stuff, and yeah, it fell back on me. And um I do remember at one point when they were trying to move into the same place that I was living and stuff like that, like the same apartment complex, not the same apartment, but yeah, like, I'm just like, oh my gosh. But all these kind of memories about all this kind of stuff, you know, I'm like, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Like, when you think about it, it's like, okay, you know, like, um, there sometimes are issues that are going on, and it can be a little challenging to really strategize and plan, and especially when it's with another person. It's not impossible, but it can be a little bit hard. Um, so yeah, I've noticed that, but um, yeah, I don't know if I've noticed much more. Um, you know, but also, you know, people get heated about it too, it sounds like, and you know, it's hard to not see someone else's fault of how they're spending or how they're doing something and be like, dude, like, I need you to do this differently, you know, because, you know, if people have those kinds of issues, it's going to be hard to kind of really plan, in all honesty. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of all I have to say at the moment on that topic. And, you know, I think it's a very relatable topic, even for people who aren't in a solid or long-term relationship. You know, even people who are dating, it's definitely food for thought. 'Cause if you know somebody who's bad with their finances and, you know, not really wanting to fix it or willing to fix it or interested in doing what it takes to kind of repair things, like, I don't think that's going to help the relationship, especially when things start getting harder or when you're in times like now where the economy is just really sucky. It's not going to help, you know. So, yeah, I've definitely noticed that. And yeah, for me, the way that I've noticed, if I can't really ask a person directly, is just kind of like, if I know someone's working full time and they do want to go out, like, say if we have, I don't know, I'm just making something up, but say if I'm, you know, with someone, been dating like a while, and we decide, okay, Friday night's gonna be date night for the two of us, and then every once in a while they can't afford it. You know, we decide, okay, we're gonna go out every Friday and spend no more than 30-40 bucks each, um, and split the bill, you know, and every once in a while this person can't afford it. Not that they don't want to do it, but they never budgeted for it and they just ran out of money and they can't afford it even though they're working full time. They can't afford 30 to 40 bucks. Now, it's one thing if you don't want to afford it and you're like, I'd rather just not afford it, right? And that conversation would probably need to be had. But if one person is just like bailing are often canceling because they don't want to afford it. That makes sense to me. But to not be able to afford it, like if you're making like $30 an hour, and your rent is a third of your income, and then you have your other basic expenses without debt, you should be able to afford $30 a week, to go have fun, to go have dinner, to, maybe that would cover dinner and like a cover charge, probably like 30, $40. Maybe dinner, a cover charge, and when you go to a club, have a drink, that's pushing. That's probably nowadays, honestly, probably pushing. But I mean, like, you can find places that are cheap enough to eat where you're not paying like over $20 a bill, per person. Um, like it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. You're just, having time together as a routine. Some people don't like that. Some people are more spontaneous. I'm definitely way more spontaneous than that. But I mean, I just say, like, if that were something that I had set up and I knew that I was dating somebody who maybe they say they don't have debt and then they're making $30 an hour, and I know that their rent isn't excessive, and then I would wonder, well, where is your money going that you can't afford $30 on a Friday? It would be things like that, or when you're planning to do stuff with people and they just can't afford it, when it's like the math should add up. That means that they have debt. Usually that's what that means, if you're trying to make plans with somebody and they can't make plans because they don't have any money, it's because they have debt, And then you have to ask, like, what are they spending their money on, like, and I'm not saying be nosy. I'm not saying, like, berate a person or, like, embarrass them about it or, like, call them out on it. But it's, like, those are the kinds of things to me where I'm, like, red flag, red flag, financial red flag, and it's easy to avoid, because it's an easy fix of, like, well, I'll pay, or we'll just go do something free, But it's like, if you never see that pattern changing, and it's always like, oh, I don't have money, oh, I don't have money, I can't do this, I can't afford it because I don't have money, oh, I can't afford that because I don't have money, and they're making good money, and technically the bills should even out. It's like, well, they're spending their money on stuff, and they're obviously not telling anybody, and nobody's going to ask them. I'm not going to be asking somebody I'm trying to date, like, what do you spend your money on? Like, where's your money go? What's your biggest expense and stuff like that, like. But I have been comfortable enough to kind of talk about credit, kind of just like vaguely just be like, oh, like, do you use credit cards? Do you have student debt? And usually most people are comfortable talking about if they have credit cards, if they have if their credit score is good, or if they have student debt, or if they have a lot of debt or whatever. Sometimes they'll talk to you about it. And I've talked to people a lot about that. Or just even asking people, do you invest? Do you have a retirement plan? I mean, there's so many people who do neither, and to me that is problematic, especially because I'm getting close to 40. So it's like, if I'm meeting people my age or older, and it's like, dude, if you're in your 40s and you don't have anything saved for your retirement, like, are you even planning on retiring? Like, what's going on? But again, I'm saying, like, don't shame people. I'm not mentioning this to be like, oh, you have to shame them or, like, dump them or, be like, this person isn't compatible. But it's like noticing how it is to have a conversation about it. Like, do you see something different than what they seem to be presenting? Like, do they seem like they're very wealthy because of the stuff that they buy, the stuff that they wear, the way that they look, the stuff on the surface? But then it's like, well, we can never afford to go out and do anything, or like, one thing I've noticed in people, I'm probably going to just keep going on a tangent now with this stuff, but like, just like, because a lot of times you can't easily talk about it, right? So you have to go by what you notice and what you witness and what you can deduct from what you kind of see. And so one thing I noticed about someone I met kind of recently was how they just kind of get in line and let people pay for them. So I was out not that long ago with someone I don't really even know. Um, and, I was paying for a cover for, um, I didn't know how many people, but I pull out my card to pay for my cover. I noticed that my friend is behind me talking to like some of the security or whatever. Like they were friends, and so they were like talking to other staff that, like while I was in line, and like you know this person's friend comes up near me while I'm paying, and kind of like I don't know what they did or said, but like I could tell that like they kind of expected me to pay, so they kind of like um I guess when the person's asking like how many tickets or whatever, and they were like, I don't know if they said two or something like that, and I was like, no, three, because I was thinking like, well, if I'm buying yours, I'm buying the other guys too, and I don't really care. Like I was like, we do that, we pay for each other and stuff, but this person I didn't know, so that was the first thing I noticed. They didn't pay for their cover, and then I noticed we sat down at a table, and this person, took my friend's card to go buy shots and drinks, and then um, they opened up a tab, and then my friend that was in line talking to the security, that friend said he would pay for dinner. So we ate, and so that friend of his started eating off of our plates and eating our meals. And the whole night we were out, I'm just thinking like this guy didn't pay for anything. Um, he didn't pay for his cover. He didn't pay for any of the drinks. He didn't pay for the meal. Um, and we spent the whole night together, and I'm like, okay, that's not normal, you know what I mean? But I'm like, I don't know this person either, and I kind of assumed, just from what I, learned about, you know, this person's lifestyle from my friend kind of explaining, oh yeah, this person goes out and they like to drink a lot and like all this kind of stuff. From after going out and hearing about all that, I kind of realized, this person doesn't really, um, um, have a lot of money, and that's fine. I don't mind treating people and buying people stuff, when I'm in the mood to do it. Like that night, I was in the mood to just like, you know, pay for the cover or like whatever. Like I wasn't really too concerned, For me, I was like, whatever. I'm not really too concerned. Like I was there on vacation. I was having a good time, meeting friends of my friend. I was just there to socialize, and I didn't really mind it. But I was thinking, if this was a normal weekend and it was like every single Friday or Saturday night that was like this, where I found that this person's always hopping in line next to me so that I could pay, and this person's always, strategically just like open, well, oh, does somebody want me to open a tab at the bar and just take the card to the bar and just stocking up on drinks? I think they had like 4 drinks that they bought at once, you know, all for themselves. And I'm just like, what? It's like things like that where I'm just like, if that was happening every weekend, I'd probably be like having to say something, or like if I couldn't say something, if I felt uncomfortable, I would just avoid hanging out, honestly, with that person, or I would get there early and just go in and not give them my card and not pay for them. I would, sometimes it's like it's hard to have a direct conversation, but I'm just saying, like, if you're even looking at things like that, like just hanging out, or when people ask you to buy them a drink and I'll Venmo you back, kind of thing. Like, it's one thing when it's like, okay, the line is excessively long, or like you can only split the bill so many ways. Like, there are reasons where it makes sense to kind of like one person pay, but it's like usually when I go out, everybody's paying for themselves. Like, usually that's kind of like a given. Nobody's expecting to pay for the whole table. And I've gotten into the habit that when I am in a group and I do end up paying, um, like I never pay for the whole table anymore, because there's always somebody that you have to try to hunt down that never pays, and I am very uncomfortable asking people to pay their portion of the bill, and so I just don't. I've done it once. I think one birthday I went to karaoke, and because I'd usually gone with a bunch of friends, different friends, Um, and we would always, after we sang, we would go up to it was private rooms, and then after we sang, we would go up to the main desk and we would all split the bill equally because we were all there equal amount of time and we were all singing. And so usually we would split it. And I remember one birthday, right when our time was up, they came, they told us, okay, one more song, and then everybody went out the front door and they were all standing out in the front. And then one of my other friends who was usually singing karaoke with us, he kind of knew the drill and he was just like, oh, so he hands me $20 for him and his date, and I'm there, and I pay the whole bill minus the $20. So I pay like $60 to $80 for the whole group of us to go sing. And then I was upset. I was upset because I was like, first of all, this is my birthday. Second of all, like I told people I'm gonna bring the drinks, but I didn't bring a whole lot of stuff. I just brought like a little bit of, I think it's called like choyu or chuya or something. Like it's like these little Japanese wines with a sour plum in them, and I think it's called choyu or something like that. CHOYU. I think that's the brand. The brand or the name of the drink, but it's a type of a wine or something, like a plum wine with the plum in it or something. And so I was really into that, and I brought the drinks and I basically divvied up the bill, and the people who I had Venmo for, I charged everybody like $7 each. And I didn't have everybody's Venmo, so I ended up paying probably like 30 bucks, because some people didn't pay me back. Like some people didn't pay the Venmo, and then others did. But I learned my lesson at that point. Like I'm not paying. I'm not putting myself in a position like that again. So usually, if somebody else says they're gonna pay the bill, I'll usually Venmo them on the spot, just so we know we're good before I even leave that night. Or I'll, um, I try to bring cash and cash in ones, usually fives and ones, so that if it is kind of a weird, like, oh, we can't split the bill or whatever, I'll usually, not always, but I'll usually try to have cash on me, like 20, 30 bucks of cash on me, because it's rare that I'm gonna eat enough in a way to split a bill that it's gonna cost me over $30. But um, especially if I'm not drinking or anything. And I do that because a lot of times people are like, let's split the bill. And it's like, well, if I was just trying to be, on the frugal side and still come and participate and eat, but I didn't drink at all. I didn't buy like 3 pitchers of beer and like 8 shots or whatever. I didn't buy shots. I didn't buy alcohol. I didn't buy anything like that. Like, why should I be splitting the bill if I had water and an appetizer on purpose? I shouldn't have to split the bill with the person who drank more than half the bill by themselves. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so I usually bring cash, and I'll just be like, oh, this is what I just had the appetizer, and I'll just put down cash of like, this is how much I spent, because I'm like, I am not gonna pay, especially unexpectedly. Like if somebody tells me expectedly how much we're paying, that's one thing. But it's like, if nobody tells me, I don't want to pay all that. And like I've gone out with friends before too, where it's like I was just, I got like a burger and a tea or something, and ended up paying like 60 something dollars for the bill. And I'm like, because you guys drank the whole time. Like, you can't just go places and drink and then split the bill. Like, to me, it's like, that's going to cost so much more money. And there's so many cheaper ways to do that, Like, if you really like to drink that much, go to the freaking liquor store and get those mini alcohol whiskeys or vodkas or whatever for like $2-3 and drink like 3 or 4 of them, Like, buy a drink there, buy some lemonade and spike your own lemonade. Like, I've done that multiple times, and that's so much cheaper than, you know, um, than other things that people do. Um, and I guess another one, like, yeah, these are the kinds of things that I would say, ways to save yourself money, not getting like locked into like some kind of expensive bills and like on the spot, and just don't offer to pay the whole bill by yourself, because sometimes people will not pay you back, or they won't tip, or they won't consider the tip and tax, and so you might be losing out on like let's call it like almost 25% in some, depending if you have like tax in your state, but like our tax is less than 10%, but I usually round it up to 10%, and then I say 15% minimum, 15% if not 20% for the waiter, and so it's like I'm usually considering 25%, per purchase, and like per person. But a lot of people don't pay the 25%, or they don't factor in tax, or they don't factor in a tip, or some people tip 10%, some people just give $2. Like some people don't do the percentage, of tip. And so, you know, if they're going to be like making you pay it and then they're paying you back, they might actually be paying you back less than what you are going to be paying per person. And so that's why I'm like, I don't really find it right for myself to split the bill. Like I know it's a nice move. It's a very polite and nice and group effort kind of like nice thing to do, but I just don't do it because I know I'm kind of passive on that kind of thing, and I'm not comfortable asking people to pay me back, because I might hold a little grudge against it too. Like I know that you know, once I went on a trip with somebody who, me and them were hanging out most of the day, and we get somewhere and they're like, "Oh, this thing is like $20, but it's only cash," and I'm like, oh, I don't think I have cash, and then they're like, "Oh, can you check? Can you check if you have cash?" Because they really wanted this thing, and in my head, I'm like, I don't buy stuff like that. Like I don't pay an extra $20. And they're like, "I'll pay you back," which they never paid me back. They never paid me back the $20. So I was like, fine, like here, I looked in my wallet, I had the cash, I gave them $20. I had $20 too for myself, and I was like, well, might as well buy myself one if I'm buying them one too. And so I ended up spending $40, and you know, they they never paid me back, and I didn't learn my lesson the first time from them, because I guess after that, sometime after that, I remember buying a ticket that costs, let's say, somewhere between 80 and $150. I bought a ticket, and they took like over a month to like pay me back, and I didn't mention anything. I just sent them a Venmo request, and then the next time after that, they asked me, can you get me a ticket for this thing? And I was like, nah, like I'll tell you when I'll tell you when I buy my ticket. Let me know when you get yours. Like just I put it in the wording. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not gonna say that I'll buy ours and you pay me back. Like there are very few people who I trust nowadays to kind of pay me back in full. And I'm not saying that they're doing it to get over. It's just a lot of people aren't down to the detail with money, and if you're trying to be down to the penny with money, I'm not saying like using people or trying to get over on someone or trying to be a cheapskate or whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's your money. Like, you have every right to spend it the way you want. And if other people are going to be like stiffing you even on like $20, $30, $4, it's your right to be like, well, I don't want that. I don't want it to go that way. I wanted that $4. I wanted that $20 back. I wanted, it's your money, But most people, when they have financial issues, a lot of times they want to do stuff and go to events and stuff, and you'll see them out there, like, getting other people to pay for their stuff, and then they'll pay them back in their time, but it's like, and I've done that to people before too, like, paid them back when it was convenient for me, but it's like, I still don't think it's right, but it's like, it's more like, especially if they're not requesting the money from you, but it's like, a lot of times it's like they know you're not gonna ask them, you know, um, and they don't want to ask you, you know, and so a lot of times that's just the reality of it. But yeah, so there's that. And then but yeah, those are probably the only little tips that I use for myself, is just kind of being observant of what's going on and kind of making a strategy for myself when I notice things come up. And like I mentioned, like I'm not like in a long-term relationship with anybody right now, so most of it's just like hanging out with friends or going out on dates, and so usually that's where these things come up. And for me anyways, for someone who's not with someone, and so yeah, I try not to do that. But yeah, I that's kind of what I you know what I want to do, you know, what I try to what works for me, you know, and I try not to go off of that track, or get like pressured in any way by anybody else. So yeah, with that, I guess stay tuned for the daily. I'll be posting that, and hopefully that was helpful. Alright. Today is April 28th, 2023. I'm about to head to the beach. I'm trying to carefully back out of my driveway first. Got some pedestrians. Let you not run into the pedestrians. Okay. Man, it is beautiful out. Man, oh man, it is beautiful out. The sun just got to shining at about 10:20 a.m. or so today. And so I decided to kind of venture out and get myself out of the house early. So I don't know where I left off yesterday, but I think maybe it was around noon. I don't remember where I left off with recording about yesterday, honestly. But yeah. So as far as yesterday was concerned, I didn't sleep very good at all the night before, and so I was so thrown the whole day. I didn't really get too much done, but later in the day, I did podcasting, and then after that, later in the day, I got into a little bit more detailed self-care, I guess. So, you know, people who follow me, they know that, like, I've got this whole fun thing that I do. I call it Weed Wednesdays. And then I have Therapeutic Thursdays. But, you know, I vaped Wednesday, and I was like, okay, like, that was fine. But that's kind of all I did. And then, so I decided Thursday, because I hadn't had edibles in a while, and the edibles I was having were these Pro-Tab indica edibles. And so I do kind of like having hybrids, if that makes sense. Like because, they don't make me so mellowed out. I mean, I'm still not productive. Like, I wasn't very productive because I took so much. But basically, I'll get to that portion of yesterday. But yeah, I wasn't feeling like perfect. Like I had a rough night the night before. Like I mentioned, I think I kind of like dredged up something that, I just wasn't ready for, and I didn't really have my mental space kind of clear enough to kind of deal with it, and then it affected my sleep, and then I woke up and just felt like I just couldn't get it together yesterday. Like Thursday was like a non day for me, like, and so I basically was just taking it easy, kind of trying to schedule out what I need to do. Definitely worked on the podcasting and stuff, and some of the podcasting had to do with some of the stuff I've been studying, and so I kind of threw the topics into there like that. And then so that was, I don't know what day that was. That was yesterday. And then in the afternoon, around my lunch break, so I took my lunch break. I wrote down the times, but I'm driving right now, so I can't look at it. But my siesta time was like from about noon. Like I started prepping lunch right before noon, and then from about that time, let's call it like 11:50ish, until I started uploading the podcast stuff around that time, and then around like noon, afternoon, I basically lounged. So for yesterday's breakfast, I had like maybe half a bowl of oats and half, like, I think I had a cup of cacao, and then I had like later on, like with my lunch, I had like a half a cup of coffee. I drink this Four Sigmatic coffee with mushrooms. I think it's got chaga and lion's mane. I don't know if it has other mushrooms in there, but you can get it at Sprouts. I get the packets because it's just like a single cup, and then it's 50 milligrams worth of caffeine per packet, and I think they also have like the ground as well, but I don't get the ground. And so there's that, and then I basically went from there to like from the coffee to like around lunch time to just like relaxing. So I was watching stuff at lunch. Dang, it's not going to be sunny at the beach. The marine layer's still here. It's still cloudy out. Dude, that's crazy. But yeah, I had a little bit of that, and I don't know if it really kicked in, if it really helped. But like I mentioned, like even I think it was the day before or the day before that, maybe it was like Monday, I think I went to the gym, or Tuesday or something like that, and I noticed that I was kind of like stressed a little bit, like kind of a little bit of a struggle with my energy, even when I had C4 that day. And it was kind of the same thing yesterday. Like I was a little surprised that even though I had coffee for lunch to attempt a little bit of a pick-me-up, it didn't really work so successfully as I thought it would. Like I really wasn't as energetic as I had planned to be. Dude, the road is blocked. It's not blocked. I thought it was blocked. I thought I saw caution tape, and I couldn't see that it wasn't going all across the lane that I was trying to turn into, so I missed my turn. But yeah, I basically was trying to just have a pretty, balanced day. It was just a challenge, and that's what happens, if you can't sleep and stuff, like, you can only expect so much. And I feel like it's been multiple days where my sleep was poor, multiple consecutive days from before yesterday, when my sleep was pretty poor. And so, because it was multiple days like that, it just all added up, in all honesty. And so, yeah, I wasn't really feeling like my best, but I kind of paced myself. Like, I did want to, like, push, I was telling one of my friends, I was like, yeah, like, usually I'm like, I'm gonna push, and like, but I'm like, I'm trying to, like, listen to my body, listen to my mind, get better at that, and not just, like, run myself completely ragged just because I can. And so I decided to not push that hard past lunch, and rested during lunch, watched the show. I'm still watching Freaks and Geeks, watched some of that, and then got into the show that I've been wanting to watch, but I hadn't really started until yesterday. And it's on Netflix. I think it's called Your Rich Life, or Start Your Rich Life, or something like that. And then, so it's kind of chill, and I think that's the name of it. And I know a lot of people, I understand the clickbaity kind of stuff. There's clickbaity kind of stuff, like, so when you hear something like, oh, get rich or something, like, usually we all know, like, that's not what this is about. But, I gave it a chance, because I was like, it is, like, this whole entire series, and, I didn't want to just fully write off the whole entire thing. Because I was like, I don't think Netflix is gonna really, like, do us like that and be, like, not letting us, go through. Like, I was feeling like Netflix isn't gonna just, make us, get, exposed to something that's just completely, like, hogwash kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, I'll trust it because it's on here, and, like, usually clickbait stuff and all that, like, that's more of, like, a YouTube kind of thing. And, there's usually not that much stuff related to finance on, like, Netflix. Like, Netflix isn't really, like, you don't really go to Netflix for your finance advice. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what it's there for. And so I was like, well, let me give this show a chance, because I was like, let me just trust it a little, because, like, it might not be that bad, And I'm glad I kind of took that approach, because I was like, it really wasn't that bad. And so I just decided, I'll trust it. It's probably not going to be terrible. So I watched quite a few episodes of that, because I felt like it was productive to watch. So I kind of liked that they had this topic called financial, I don't know if it was called financial psychology. I can't remember the exact terminology, but basically it was to the tune of, the psychological aspect of kind of what's actually going on with these people. And I did appreciate that. I did like that. I was like, that's something that I think most people are actually needing. And so I did like and appreciate that. And, for me, it was nice. I was like, okay, this is great. It's kind of, like, nice to kind of see, And so I kind of left it at that. And it was pretty nice. Hopeful to see a nice. But it kind of got the gears turning a little bit. So I feel like it was, if I was gonna just kind of veg a bit. That was productive. And then I was like, well, let me go to the beach, and then go get my. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I was like, let me just get out of the house, because I got like a bit of an uptick of energy around like 2 yesterday. Well, no, it was after that, like around 3 something, but around 2 something, I started feeling a little drowsy. I remember getting a little tired and wanting to nap, and I was like, I'll give myself like 20-30 minutes. But then when I got up to go have a bathroom break, by the time I got back, I was like, I didn't really feel like as drowsy, like I wasn't like literally drifting off. And so I pushed it a little bit, and then kind of got a little bit of a second wind. So that was nice. And then so after having that kind of like second wind, I proceeded to kind of get going with my day and or my evening, and ended up going over to the dispensary because I decided, because I only have like 5 milligrams worth of a Pro Tab left, of an Indica Pro Tab. So I was like, I don't really want Indica because it's gonna like knock me out. And at that point, I was like, I might still be productive. Like when I have hybrids in my system, I might actually do something like musical or like athletic in a way. Like I like dancing and like inside the house, and like exercising a little like through dancing and yoga and stuff like that. So sometimes I like capoeira types of yoga fusion type exercises, and so I notice, and like other martial arts and stuff, and so I notice sometimes hybrids do kind of help me towards that. And so I was like, yeah, let me just get that in there and use this hybrid. So I went to the dispensary, got the usual Cushy Punch gummies, and then I saw this drink. It was like Jones brand. It was like orange cream soda or something, and there was a blue one, there's a green one, there's an orange one, and I decided for the orange one because there was only one left. So I was like, well, that must be the one that everybody likes then, so let me try that. And got one of those, dropped by Nijia Market, got some Japanese kind of deli groceries, a little bit of snacks, these like veggie straw chips or something. And they weren't really veggie straws, not the same exact ones. They were like Japanese brand and a little different. Like I feel like they weren't, like they tasted a little different than veggie straws, but that's probably the most similar I could compare it to if I had to like give an example of what they were like. And then but they were delicious. So I didn't even drink all of that soda. I drank most of it, but not all of it. I still have more left, but it's gonna be just sugar water now. And it kind of hurt my teeth with all that sugar. My teeth are still kind of like, my gums are still kind of feeling weird because of it. And I felt like they were maybe a little swollen in the back yesterday, but I don't really know for sure. But yeah, I'm not like that hard into like sugar products. But yeah. So that was just kind of where I went with that. And then like after that, I went and just had like a really basic what do you call it? Like just like a cannabis session, I guess, and had some of the drink. I had like half of it at first, and then it kicked in, and I was like, it kicked in hard, man. And but it was good. It was in a really good way, and you know, maybe that's just what I needed. I was able to relax and do some of a self-care routine, and I wasn't really too much online talking to friends or anything. I was just kind of like in my head and just like really enjoying myself, like that. And then by like 10:30 or so, I had already been dozing off for a while by that point, and so I made sure I didn't need any restroom breaks or anything. But before that, I ate like a bunch of chips. I ate those veggie chip things. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I ate quite a lot of them. And for dinner before that, I had, I guess it's oyakodon. I don't know what it is. I don't know the difference between the pork one and the chicken one. But it was basically like a pork cutlet with kind of like with some kind of scrambled egg omelet in there, a little bit of green onion, rice, the regular onions. So I ate that last night. I don't know. I don't eat pork that much. It kind of got stuck in my teeth. Like, I'm not really into like pork, beef, that kind of thing. But the selections at Nijia were kind of sparse, and so I was like, let me just get what I'm gonna get. So yeah, that was kind of my night. And I was a little worried this morning because I woke up around 6, let's call it 6:12, 6:20, somewhere around there. And I was like, dude, it's early. But I felt fine because I was like, this is the first time in a while I've woken up in the 6 zone instead of like in the 7 zone. Like I was like awake, but I was like also still feeling kind of maybe stoned. So I was like, dude, like I'm so tired. And it was kind of weird because like if I closed my eyes, I could go back to what I was dreaming like right away. Like I wasn't like fully like awake. Like I could kind of like choose my dreaming. It was kind of really odd, and that was early this morning. But I was like, let me just get up. Like I don't need to be in bed. So I decided to get up around 7:30 or so. I was just trying to get my mental energy kind of together. And then when I was like actively trying it, I noticed, okay, I'm not really stoned, I'm just like groggy. And so at first I thought I was like really stoned this morning, but it's just kind of like the after effects. So I started feeling pretty good, and then around 8-ish I had coffee and made some Ichiban ramen. I know that's not like the best of healthy meals, but like that's kind of what I wanted. I was like, let me just have something salty and high carb, first thing in the morning, like whatever, just something quick and hot. But before that, with my coffee, I put in a little bit of MCT oil, and it really pumped my energy up. Like pretty much all this morning, I've had like really high mental energy, like not stoned high, but like very increased mental energy compared to the other days. And I think a lot of it also is probably because I slept really good last night. I slept so good last night. Like I think I slept all the way through the night. Like I did wake up. I remember waking up a little bit because I usually have this beanie on. So I do remember like rolling over and being like, oh, the beanie isn't on anymore. But other than that, like yeah, I slept immaculately, and today I feel really great. But it's hard to tailor my energy. I'm like, I don't know if I want to use this energy more mentally or physically, and I'm not going to take more caffeine today, but yeah, I'm definitely having good energy. Like my brain is a little There's still a little bit of fog in there, but I'm pretty sure that's from the weed products. Like, um, I slept pretty good though. But yeah, like every now and then it just helps. Like I know people are like sometimes people are like really against cannabis and stuff, but it's like every now and then, it's not like I'm every day trying to like do this. And like I said, like Weed Wednesday is usually the day that I partake if I'm gonna have like a higher than normal dose of things, then that's usually the day that I'll choose to do it, if not on a weekend. But um, yeah, I try not to um, get um, yeah, try not to get nothing. I try not to, like, I don't know. I find the benefits of it, and it really did relax me and you know, help me actually just go to sleep. Like I feel like for me it works better than melatonin. Like I feel better today than I felt all the other days before when I took melatonin for sleep. Like I didn't take any melatonin last night and I only had, THC, and I feel fine, this morning. Other than early this morning, like early was a little hard and I was just like, man, I'm probably just gonna when I first woke up I felt like I was just gonna sleep all day. I was like, and I don't usually sleep all day like that, but when I first woke up I was like, ooh, this is gonna be a rough morning. So I was very shocked that by 8:30 a.m. I had already been kind of wiry for a couple minutes there, at least a little wired at least since then. And but yeah, there's still a little bit of fog, but nowhere near what it was the other days. And it's kind of a combination though, because I think cannabis helps, but then also the sleep helps, and then the coffee helps, and the MCT oil helps. So like the combination of things, I can't really say it was just one of them, one of the things, but yeah, definitely it's a necessity to sleep and sleep early. Like I slept early. I was asleep before 11 for sure. And I just did what I needed to do for myself yesterday. I didn't push too hard, and today I actually feel great. And it's Friday, so unfortunately I don't have too much today. Let me see when the sun sets. I have a sunset time that I follow Fridays, so my specific sunset time is 7:34 p.m. So 7:34 p.m. I'll be, kicking myself off of, actually working on stuff, and I'll start to, get a little bit more focused. Yeah, I'll kick myself off from working on stuff, and I'll start to get a little bit more focused um, on I don't know. I'll just start to get a little bit more focused, basically. And yeah, so this morning, since that point, I'll be focused. Okay, like Friday nights, it's kind of more like the focus is more on like otherworldly things. So kind of just like nature, the universe. That's kind of where I like my mind to be Friday nights and Saturday daytimes. And I kind of just like overall disconnect from all the hustle of things. I try not to get too caught up in too much like negativity or too much, about the financial state of the world or world news or current events and all the kind of drama. I don't think about any business planning stuff. I don't study. I don't think about school, classes, nothing. Like I just delve into this other part of things that kind of, it helps me reset a little bit better to do that. Otherwise, it's like all week just going with no I feel like it helps me balance more. And otherwise, all week I'll just be going without any form of like balancing those other kinds of areas of life. So yeah, so there's that. Yeah, and that's what I'm dealing with today. But yeah, pretty much this morning I paid someone on Fiverr. I got some marketing to do, and I'm having someone else help me with some parts of it that I'm not doing for social media marketing. And then I've got my store, my online store that I need to tend to later on today as well. So I'll go get on that. After the podcasting stuff, and right now I'll just be at the beach with the pods. And then like I'll probably fit in a little snack right about now. I've got that going right now. Either the choice of a perfect bar or some popcorn. Skinny pop, single bags of popcorn, like the snack size bags. I might have popcorn because I'm kind of sick of these perfect bars. I eat them so much. And then get some episodes up for today. I haven't posted any of my episodes yet for today. And then once I need a bathroom break, I'll head back home. The beach is not that sunny today. It's actually cloudy and foggy. And so I'm probably gonna stay here a while because it's not as hot. And I can kind of sit in the car and record a little bit more easily from here. So that's it for the day's daily update. And with that, thanks for listening.